be on.
Eureka.
We make plays every day, yeah. 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 We make plays every day, yeah.
Hey, welcome to the Real Fantasy Playmakers. I am your host, Bogard Scott Free, here with a very special guest we'd like to welcome onto the show. It's Sky from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast. What's happening, Sky?
Yo, Bogart, thank you so much for having me, man. This is quite the pleasure. I'm very excited to be on the program today.
Man, we excited too, man. Almost blew my load right there. Pause. You know what I'm saying? Right out the gate, we're going to handle some house cleaning. You know what I'm saying? Follow me at the GMM Network. Follow me at Bogard Scott Free World. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Milk and Honey, for all your CBD goodness. If you bust your ass and you need some topical, put on that thing. Go ahead and visit www.milkandhoneytx.com. Also, shout out to our other in-house sponsor, bayclothingco.com, for all your sports attire, all that shit. You know what I'm saying? And go ahead and I want to properly introduce Sky from the Fantasy Kids Podcast. Welcome aboard once again. Go ahead and let them know where they can find you.
Cool, man. You got it. Yeah. So Sky, Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast. A lot of you will know us from the TCK pod, obviously the acronym for the Candlestick Kids. We're going to get into the meaning of all that here in a little bit. I know that both of us reside from the Bay originally, so we'll get into that here in the podcast. But, yeah, man, you can find us on Twitter at TCK_pod, TCK_pod, Instagram at fantasyfootball_TCK pod, Facebook, the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast, and our website, tckpod.com. Many articles there. We got our redraft rankings coming up, rookie rankings as well. We got the YouTube channel, the podcast. You can find us all over the place. YouTube just started, the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast. Go and please subscribe to us there and listen to us wherever you'd like to on your podcast as well. We're all over the place, man. We're in year 3, and we're really enjoying it.
Man, you know, I can't lie. When I listen to your guys' content, I could tell you guys do enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because there is some people that are very insightful, but they're like, meh, like, you know what I mean? As far as like, you know, tolerable to hear out. You know what I mean? And I actually, after going through, you know, the past week, just, you know, kind of peeping out all you guys' content, man, I'm actually excited, you know what I mean? Because I love different aspects, especially people that actually you could tell that really grind. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that, you know, they'll slap an Instagram together and be like, I'm the greatest ranker, or, you know what I mean? And try to, you know, throw up some kind of facade, but you definitely can't fake grind. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, we've been at it for 3 years, man. And, you know, it really just comes from, you know, you could call it hustle, grind, whatever you want to call it, man. But in a couple different careers throughout my life, I've realized one thing, and that is that you can't teach work ethic. You know, I fully believe that you either have it or you don't, and the people that do have it rise above the rest eventually. So something that we do on the podcast is that, you know, we're building a team, which I'll get into here in a second. But as it started with just me and a homie, and then it became a couple people, now it's a team of 7. And, you know, I want to make this our own network as well, you know, similar to, say, Fantasy Pros or the Fantasy Footballers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yep, all the big dogs. Yeah,
yeah, we're all about networking, though, man. You know, I was a musician for a very long time. Well, still am, but I was a nationally touring musician for a decade before I started getting into this hardcore. And the only thing that allowed us to get around the country and still helps our band today is the networking. And so people that know me and know our brand, you know, just like this, man, I'm happy to pop on a podcast anytime. I have a lot of guests on our podcast. I love to share other people's content, and it's all love all the time, man. And if we don't have each other's back, nobody else is going to have it for us.
Yeah, man. And you know what? On top of that, you are the Candlestick Kid, man. You know, this is Niner Gang. I don't mean to sound like a homer. But, you know, we damn near cousins already. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. We definitely, so just a quick little, a brief overlook of what I want to go over. So, you know what I'm saying? I want to definitely get into a little bit of combine and some of the standouts. Maybe we could talk, speculate, where some of these skill position players can land, where they could really, make a immediate fantasy impact, or even, maybe not so much immediate, but someone you want to look out for in Dynasty. We'll kind of mesh those two things together. You know what I mean? Dynasty and combine, and I also want to talk about some free agency speculation. Because over this past week, our Niners have been connected to these Tom Brady rumors. I got some strong takes on this. You know what I mean? And then I also just want to talk about, just the fantasy grind and what kind of, what kind of fantasy leagues we prefer to be in. Because, a lot of times during this year, you have the people that are disgruntled with their league and they're trying to figure out how to make their leagues better. Whether it's scoring format or whether it's, a type of lineups like super flex or you get what I'm saying, like all kind of shit. But first of all, before we get into any of that, I just want you to elaborate a little bit on the TCK Fantasy Podcast and about some of these guys that that you were talking about, maybe some of the 7. Just briefly let the Playmakers, which is our core audience, let the Playmakers know a little something about TCK Fantasy Podcast that we might not know just from looking at the cover.
You got it, man. I appreciate it, and thanks so much for the intro, man. This is going to be a fun one. I can already tell.
Yeah.
So basically, we're the TCK Pod. We're in year 3 right now. It started with myself and childhood buddies Daniel and Curly.
Shout out to Daniel and Curly. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, the biggest shout out, man. I'm in both their weddings, their family. Those are guys that I was playing Little League with and Pop Warner football, and we're like OSG, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like
all of
that.
us grew up in the Bay, and basically we just had a love for football and baseball. I know nobody likes to talk about baseball in fantasy football circles, but we're big baseball guys too. And we basically started this podcast in 2017. Last year, Lucas Kaser joined us, who you hear now as my co-host, and now we're increasing the team as well this offseason. So that whole team, really quick, is myself, and again, that's TCK_pod. I'm the founder and the head coach. Lucas Kaser at Kaser_Lucas is the co-host and the head of fantasy football operations for us. Our man Dweezy, and that's at Dweez Nuts. He's a lead writer and the stats nerd for us. Tyler
Nice.
Moss at Tyler Moss NFL. He's the rookie guru and the content creator. Corey Spalla, CJALAPSFF. He's the Excel wizard and the content creator, great at spreadsheets, really breaking down all of our content. And then my man, Danny McKinnon at DannyFootball59, content creator as well. You can find all those guys' content on our website, tckpod.com. No need for the www. tckpod.com. A lot of articles, man. These guys spend a fuck ton of hours digging up all the dirty work. And a big thing about fantasy football, man, is everybody likes to talk about rankings. Everybody likes to have an opinion. But what we try to do on the TCK Pod is have opinions based on reality, based on fact, based on statistics. So we don't like to go, running our method and making spreadsheets until we know what the hell we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So we're generally a little bit later in the game with rankings and, up and coming this and bust this and breakouts. I don't even talk about that shit until after the NFL draft, usually not until June or July, because so many things that people talk about now.
So many variables. Yeah, and during this time of year, it's a lot of clickbait. It's a lot of just, talking heads, just finding out ways to, just to take up time. I, for one, I love speculating. You know what I mean? It is fun. You know what I mean? And it is for great clickbait. But you're right, though. I mean, when you want to have a show that has integrity, that people, where they could depend on the information, it's gonna have to do a lot more than speculating. And I like your take on that. I like your guys' approach. I love especially how you have titles for each individual. You know what I mean? Everyone isn't just some talking head. Everyone has, even though everyone does chime in, everyone has their specific role. Like you said, you have your content creator, you have your rookie guy. You know what I mean? Like I love that, because teamwork makes the dream work, as cliche as it sounds. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, and I mean that's a great rule of thumb to have, Playmakers. You know what I'm saying? Teamwork makes the dream work, and don't just have a team of some buffoons. You need sharp individuals. You need to be a reflection of who you surround yourself with. And you don't need to be the jack of all trades neither. You know, you can be the master of one and go ahead and collect you pieces around you, and everyone specializes in some form or fashion or department or what have you. You feel me?
Bogard, I totally agree, man. And honestly, I'm glad you said it that way because, again, I'm not against making rankings. I'm not against busts and early breakouts and all this shit. That's important because a lot of dynasty drafts are happening early. We're going to have the rookies come up here pretty soon after free agency and the NFL draft. Mm-hmm. That's all important stuff. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just talking about one focus that we have as a group with TCK Pod is to make sure that everybody is doing the work and doing our own research and not just taking everybody's opinion
and kind of recycling them over and
because it's really important that you do your own research, you know what you're talking about. And to finish up my thought really quick on the team, basically I've been playing fantasy football since 2007. I moved up from the Bay to Eugene, Oregon in 2007. Once I graduated high school to go to college, I would go to U of O, so I'm a Duck. And we met, basically I met a group of guys when I moved up here in Eugene, and that summer we got a fantasy football league together. I was the commissioner of that one right away. That's our all-in or fold league, and that's basically based on like a poker group of homies. We created a fantasy football league. That's our league of record, and we've been building that since. And in 2017, like I said, after a decade of the league of record, Daniel Curley and myself wanted to start a podcast for basically our league members originally, but it gained ground quickly and started to grow. So after that, we decided to make it public and and grow the team. And that's where Lucas came on, and then the rest of our guys, man, Dweez and Tyler, Corey, Danny. So it happened pretty quickly. And I think to divide the team up in what aspects of this that people like to do and what they're best at is the way to go, because you're right, man. I could sit here and I could do all this shit, but I'm going to get burnt out real fast. So to have new players come on and say, hey, man, what do you like to do? Some people like to run a podcast. Some people like to do social media. Some people like to do graphic design. Some people like to just run stats all day and don't want to be on the podcast.
Yeah, so you got to play their strength. As the head coach, like you said, you're the head coach. You're the head of the body. You know what I'm saying? You gotta go ahead and play these guys' strengths to put them in the best position to win. And you know what? I just realized a lot of those cliche sayings, they really are the shit though, right? Like, we got to put you in the best position to win. As cliche as that sounds, that's really what it is though. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to put the square peg in the circle hole or vice versa. You know what I mean?
Well, the biggest thing with that, man, is they're cliches and they're stereotypes for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? They're real. And a cliche or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, the reality is your team is going to be best. Think about the best teams in the NFL, right? Like over, not one-hit wonders, like over the years. You know, I'm talking like the Patriots.
Like the Patriots.
Yeah, the Patriots, the Chiefs. I mean, the Saints. These kind of teams, they have people who
even
are
the
very
Steelers.
good at
I'll
what
throw the
they
Steelers
do.
in there too. Seattle.
100%. There's a lot of them, and there's a lot of teams. But you got to think about why are they good, and they're good because their coach. First of all, usually they have a long-term coach.
Yes.
Secondly, they have players that are very good at what they do, and they worry about what they do. They always call it the Patriot way, right?
Yeah.
Do your job. And if we microscopically break that down to like what you and I do, it's very important that I say, hey, Lucas, what do you like to do? Okay, great. You're going to be motivated to do that. You want to do that, and you're going to kick ass. And I don't necessarily want to do what you do. So you crush that. I'll crush something else. Everybody else has got their thing. We pull it together for one product, and now we start smashing.
Woo! See, hey, you know what? Maybe I might need to cut that part out. I don't know if we want this winning formula out there. You know what I'm saying, Sky? I think we might need to keep that one in house. But anyways, if you was fortunate to hear that, Playmakers, that ain't no Jaws. And when I say Jaws, I mean lies. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Sky, let's get into this combine just a little bit. You know what I mean? I like to talk about these skill position players, but I kind of just want to hone in on a handful of them, and just at receiver and running back, because tight ends, they don't always immediately make an impact. You know what I mean? So I kind of don't really want to talk about them just yet. Maybe I'll probably more talk about tight ends when we figure out where they land. But sure. let's have a little bit of fun speculating. So I narrowed it down. I like the chalk receivers, like your CeeDee Lambs. I like your Jerry Judys, your Justin Jeffersons, and I really like besides those top two chalk, I really like Justin Jefferson, and I really like Henry Ruggs. I really like Henry Ruggs because I really feel like those guys, they're going to be using the slot predominantly, and there's a couple teams in mind that I think they could really utilize that position. For example, you got Shermer. Shermer's over there with the Broncos now. I think I think either Justin Jefferson or Henry Ruggs, they'll be a great fit to be running out that slot. You know what I'm saying? Pair them with Noah Fant and Cortland Sutton. You know what I'm saying? And you got some nice little weapons there because either those guys are burners, and so they won't just be relegated to the slot. You can move those guys around. You know what I mean? What do you think about? What do you think about those two guys, like in particular?
Well, I like them both. I like the Denver landing spot if we can count on Drew Lock 100%. I mean, Flacco's toast. I've been calling him Uncle Flacco for years.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, like I like Drew Lock, and actually, I'm a Candlestick Kid. I'm a Bay boy for sure, but Lucas is actually a Broncos fan. So he's pretty deep on the Broncos actually, and I know he's got some hot takes on believing in Drew Lock, and I like him too.
I like him too. I like him especially in in super flex. I could see me having him as my third QB, like because I am that type in super flex. I'm gonna get 3 of those bastards. You know what I mean?
Sure, and we've seen Shermer do well with certain offenses. I mean, Eli Manning definitely had stretches of his career where he was fantasy viable for sure, and Minnesota as well. I mean, Kirk Cousins
and more recently with the Giants. You know what I mean? You had your Sterling Shepards and your Evan Ingrams, and just basically guys that they utilize that slot a lot, whether it's a tight end or a receiver. So I'm pretty sure either of those guys will fit well, and because those guys I can see being second rounders. Henry Ruggs. Why do I keep wanting to call him Harry Ruggs? That's fucked up.
I got you, man. I actually, I think that them landing in Denver, I think is actually a long shot. Personally, I don't think it's a bad move for them to pick up a receiver, but
they got way too many other needs though.
They do, and I think Deshaun Hamilton is legit. I really do, and
I love Hamilton, man. It's unfortunate that it hasn't been manifesting for him.
I think he just needs more opportunity. Cortland Sutton's obviously the real deal. And Tim Patrick, I think, is somebody that falls through the cracks a lot, but I like him as well. A bigger body.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, man, I think bigger wide receiver needs are the Cardinals, the Giants, the Jets, the Packers, the Rams, Colts, the Eagles, and the Buffalo Bills, and that's where I've got all of my top tier wide receivers landing.
I like CeeDee Lamb. I like CeeDee Lamb to the Cards.
It only makes sense, man. I mean, he's got the rapport. He's got the rapport with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, because they got they got the college correlation, right?
Which I mean is great, and we've seen that happen in the NFL occasionally, and I think that's going to help tremendously, especially the fact that those guys are so new. I really like Judy in general and Higgins, and Ruggs
I forgot
too.
about Higgins.
I think Ruggs is I understand the hype, and I don't think he's not good. I just worry that Ruggs is going to be a Deshaun Jackson, which is obviously awesome for fantasy when he hits.
Yeah.
I am concerned that he's not going to be
so he screams best ball to you.
Oh, 100%. I think he's kind of a I compare him to what Tyreek Hill and Tyler Lockett came into the league as, kind of a deep stretch burner. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think, though, coming from Alabama and coming from the pedigree and having the opportunity with a team like, say, Philadelphia, replacing Deshaun Jackson, who's just busted anyway, if they can get that kind of opportunity, I do think that Ruggs in a year or two can learn to run routes more polished, and he can break off some huge games and become more of a every down receiver versus just a burner. But personally, I'm more into CeeDee Lamb to the Cardinals. I think it makes sense. I like Judy to the Giants. Just having another a prime receiver out there for Daniel Jones. And then, another burner too, Rager, of course. I think the Jets are going to get rid of Robbie Anderson, and I could see Rager going to the Jets or Green Bay. But I think Robbie Anderson actually goes to the Packers personally. But and then Jefferson, I think to the Raiders would be pretty nice, and then Higgins to complement T.Y. Hilton over there in Indianapolis. I think could help. The problem with the Colts is they need to get a quarterback that can hit downfield often. And then let's not forget about Shenault, who's another guy that can burn. I like him in Buffalo to complement John Brown. Two burners there for Josh Allen to just chuck the shit out of the ball.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
No. I'm just saying that it's interesting when here's my whole take on the speculation. This is why I bring it up. Because you and I could go through the same list, and I'm down to talk all day. I mean,
this is why I fuck with you.
I'm happy to discuss this all day. My problem is you and I are going to take the same list of receivers. We're going to probably have a completely different list of landing spots and have valid points for why they should land where we think they'll land. And neither one of us is right or wrong. My issue with heavy speculation right now is the reality is in a month we're going to know for sure.
Yeah, we'll have a clear picture.
Then we can start talking.
We'll have the clear picture. Right?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, let's speculate for like a few more minutes. Let's get into some of these free agents. Oh, actually, before we get into the free agents, there's two running backs. Who do you have as your number one, Taylor or Swift?
Taylor.
Nice. Okay. I have a question. If Taylor ends up, on a spot like the Dolphins or something, would you still consider him like 1-1 or is that too much 1-1 in Dynasty if he goes to a place like the Dolphins or who else has a shitty line and you know what I mean?
So you can stop yourself right there. If they have a shitty line, I'm not excited about it.
Okay.
And this has nothing to do with the running back, man. My whole take on Le'Veon Bell coming into last year was I was passing on him pretty much no matter what. Oh, yeah. And it had nothing to do with Lev.
Because he was coming from Steelers who, historically, in Le'Veon Bell's career, I think he averaged like 3.8 yards. My bad. Excuse me. 3.3 yards before contact is what he averaged in his career at the Steelers. Then he goes to the Jets, who averaged like 1.8 yards before contact with that existing line. It was easy fantasy math for me as well.
My issue was that he doesn't hit the hole with any sort of
explosion.
No. Yeah. And
patience.
So the problem is
like a boxer.
When he dances around and the line's bad, he's going to get blown up and he can't do anything. I would love to see Taylor go to the Falcons if they move on from Devonta Freeman.
Ooh.
That could be very nasty.
I think they definitely will move on from Freeman, but see, here's the one thing is like, I had like guys like Akers or Kyle Edwards-Helaire landing with the Falcons just because I think they would go in the second round. You know what I mean? But man, definitely he's 1-1 for sure if he goes to the Falcons. He's 1-1 in Dynasty.
I could see him maybe moving on though if they get rid of Devonta Freeman and fill up other needs like defense or offensive line for the pedigree that they will get for Devonta Freeman. They might move up in the draft in order to get a top tier running back, and I think that Taylor is a 3-down running back with the ability to catch the ball. I also like Swift, of course. Yeah. But I just overall Taylor's my guy. Now Swift on the other hand I think he would be fun in Tennessee if they move on from Henry, but that's probably a long shot. I also like Akers. I think Akers is more of a guy that could land with the Dolphins. I don't know. I don't want anybody going to the Dolphins personally.
I know, right? and it's so sad because I haven't, I'm a coordinator guy. Like I love chasing coordinators around because, right? Because, they're going to enforce a system. And it's like, I'm not even familiar who's over there right now with the Dolphins. I'm like, because I know they got rid of, Chad O'Shea. I think that was his name. He was, he was the former, damn, I might be wrong about that name. It's Chad something, but yeah, he was.
Chan Gailey.
Chan Gailey, there you go. Yeah,
what I mean? So I'll tell you this right now. So Chan Gailey came out of retirement to get back to the Dolphins after they.
Oh, that's right. He's the former Buffalo guy, the former Jets guy with the Magic Man.
Correct.
Okay. Yes. All right. Okay. So more so there. Yeah, because I can't really think of any running backs on the ground in that system that really did well. It's more so through the air, like your Freddie Jacksons. You know what I'm saying? Your who else? Bilal Powell. You know what I mean? So I could definitely see Akers there or Edwards.
Yeah, I guess Akers is my thought only because Akers or a Dobbins maybe, or even Zach Moss. I don't know. Just because first of all, Taylor and Swift should be first rounders, I think.
Regardless, but maybe not necessarily 1-1, but no matter what in Dynasty, those guys are. Yeah, you definitely want to chase the potential workhorse running backs, right?
Oh yeah, and okay, so I'm even thinking like NFL draft wise where they're going to land.
Oh, okay, word.
Right, so I'm thinking they're first rounders. I don't think that the other guys are first rounders with all the other non-fantasy importance and the defense and all those other players getting taken. Therefore, I think that Akers is a guy that could fall because they're going to probably take Tua with their first round pick there with the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And then on the second round, they have another pick later from the Steelers.
Yep.
Late in the first round. They could either grab them there or turn around the second round. So I think Taylor and Swift will be the first running backs off the board. Now, I will say, if they end up in run first opportunities or good offensive lines, then absolutely I'm taking Taylor 1 or 1.1 in Dynasty. But if he is on the Dolphins or something like that, like
what if he lands? How about this? How about if before we move on from this one, how about if he lands in a spot like Houston where it's a quote unquote high powered offense, but that line is extremely trash?
I think the line is trash, but in my opinion, really the only thing that Houston needs to fix is the offensive line. So in my opinion, okay, let's just speculate.
Because you're going to see 6-man boxes religiously if you're a running back for that team.
Well, bro, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, Lamar Miller is not good, and he's been good in Houston. Carlos Hyde has been okay for fantasy, and former Niner, I give love, but
shout out to Carlos Hyde.
Sure, but he's not a big fantasy guy anymore. But he was productive in Houston's offense because Deshaun does what he does.
Yeah.
You've got arguably the best receiver in the league, and then 2 other super studs next to him. I mean, you got Darren Fells, maybe another tight end. I mean, this offense is nuts. So if they got a running back who could handle 3 downs and catch the ball, I think Houston could be nasty, and they could spend the rest of that draft capital or even some trade with bolstering that offensive line. If they got a guy like Conklin coming out of Tennessee, who's going to leave. I mean, dude, that is just absolutely massive. If they make a move like that, that's a game changer. I don't see the Titans doing it because it's in division, but if they did it, that would be huge. And then you get a top-tier running back. I mean, the Texans are automatically, they're already playoff contenders, but they're not with the big dogs. They make a move like that, I honestly think they're going to be a top 4 team in the AFC.
I love that Conklin call. Like, how about this? We'll segue into free agency now, because look, obviously the Tom Brady shit is going on, and like if he was to go, I could see Conklin moving on, and Tennessee not being able to pay him if they brought in someone like Brady. You know what I mean? Like because they're gonna have so many. You have to pay Brady whatever it is he wants. 60 for 2 years or whatnot. Then you got what are you gonna tag Henry? Or, you know what I'm saying? And I think they have, transitional tags now? You can have 2 of them, and as far as we know now, right? Until the season.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe they will be able to keep Conklin there. But if Conklin moves on to Houston, it's a wrap, dude. It's a wrap.
I agree, too. Houston's frustrating, man, because all the talent that they do have, and bringing in Laramie Tunsil last year, I mean, just like what they – dude, what they have, they should be up with the Chiefs and the Ravens at the top of the AFC. They just lack the. Honestly, I think Bill O'Brien's the problem.
Yeah, I was gonna relay back to what you said earlier about the importance of And here's the thing with that head coach, I think it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, because it's like, man. If his shit's kind of skewed. Bill O'Brien, like he has so many playoff appearances, so many winning seasons, but it's like, man, they just it's kind of circa Andy Reid before he actually won one. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like this guy he's a good coach, but he can't win. You know what I mean? He can't win the bigger ones.
100%. Hey man, before we move on to free agents,
Yeah.
Would you mind if I double back really quick and just give your listeners
Yeah. Go ahead and plug it all.
Well, just an idea of where our team here at TCK sits on the consensus rankings.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. You DM'd me that. Yeah. Let's get into that. Cool. My friend.
Just because, we could talk about my opinion all day, but again, if somebody takes my opinion and I'm wrong, they're fucked. I want them to take a group consensus of all of us deciding.
But there is a
option.
As quote unquote fantasy analysts, we kind of have this built-in disclaimer that we reserve the right to change our opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, 100%. But
yes.
what I'm saying is, I would rather give your listeners the consensus of 6 people versus just my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So let me run down for the Playmakers. Let me run down the consensus top 5 to 7 at and these are rookies coming in. Obviously, they don't have a team yet. But this is quarterback, running back, and receivers. I'll start at quarterback. And the consensus rankings for us as a group is Burrow, Tagovailoa, Herbert, Love, Eason, Hurts, and Fromm as our quarterbacks. I'll go to the running backs really quick, and that's Taylor, Swift, Akers, Dobbins, Moss, Edwards-Helaire, Vaughn, Gibson, McFarland, and Robinson. And then for the receivers, we have CeeDee Lamb just edges out Jerry Jeudy for us.
I like
that. And actually, Corey, who is our Excel sheet nerd, he's actually got Jerry Jeudy at number 4 in his rankings, which kind of threw it off a little bit. But we have Lamb, Jeudy, Rager, Justin Jefferson, Higgins, Ruggs, Shenault, Mims, Edwards, and Johnson going down the list there. So I just want to give your listeners a heads up of where all of our heads were at.
I like that. You actually got me I'm gonna keep a little more eye on Rager's. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like I haven't really looked into him as much, but but he is an interesting prospect, man, because he's one of those guys too that, a lot of these second round guys, if a lot of these receivers that go in the second round, I feel like they'll have, it's gonna take a little longer to get the opportunity, but they're gonna land in places, much more needed. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, whoever gets picked in the first round at receiver, it's gonna be one of any of those teams you named that really don't have a true number 1. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, to just, add to that a little bit, for Rager, so he's our consensus number 3, and Dweez has him at number 4. He's kind of the biggest stat nerd. So for him to have him the lowest, for us, always raise a flag, because he's the only one that has Jerry Jeudy at number 1. He's got Rager at 4. He's actually got Jefferson at 3 and Lamb at 2. But everybody else pretty much has Rager at number 3. So I think it's Lamb and Jeudy, and however you slice that for most people. And then it's Rager and Jefferson. Then Higgins, Ruggs, Shenault, Mims are kind of a third tier, if you will. So
those are all
I
think all those guys combine really shine those guys up even more. Yeah, I mean, especially
100%,
Mims.
man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
100%. Well, so not to derail the free agency. I just want to give listeners kind of a group thought on where we sat. But let's talk free agency. We're about to get there.
Okay, so check this out. I'll just start off with my man Robbie Anderson, because you had mentioned him earlier, and that you think he would be going to Green Bay. And all the Playmakers know, I'm like, Robbie Anderson to me is one of those guys, like in fantasy, I always had him as a flex or like a third receiver in 3 wide receiver sets. You know what I mean? Just one of those guys where it's like, you know what I mean? He's a WR3, but he could have a WR1 week at any given moment. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And he's dealt with all these bad quarterbacks, you know what I'm saying, in the past couple of years. But you know what I mean? He's not just a burner to me. You know what I mean? He's 6'2", 6'3", you know what I mean? Runs a 4.4, you know what I'm saying? They used him in the red zone the past couple of seasons, but I just think that, Adam Gase is just an asshole. You know what I mean? Adam Gase, he just doesn't, you know what I mean? It's intangibles. Remember we were talking about, you got your stat guys and whatnot. I love intangibles, the shit that you can't measure. And I have some of the most stupidest intangibles. First of all, like for example, with Robbie Anderson, you know what I mean? I like to call him the Green Bean. It's my, you know what I'm saying? It's my nickname for him because he's fast, he's skinny as shit, he wears green. So just based on that alone, I would love him to go to the Eagles or Green Bay, just so I can continue to call him the Green Bean. You know what I'm saying? But also like, if Tom Brady, you know, in a nutshell, free agency, if Tom Brady ends up staying with New England, I could see them making a move on Robbie Anderson just because historically they bring in guys from their division. You know what I mean? And they badly need weapons for him to stay there. And Robbie Anderson's going to be one of those guys who isn't too expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's I think New England is probably a long shot just because I think Tom Brady does leave. I mean, he's selling his house now. I mean, we've had all this shit with him and Julian Edelman courtside. Basically, Tom Brady basically saying like he's not coming back. All this shit. We'll figure out what happens in the next couple of weeks. But I think New England's a long shot. However, I think that's a great comp. Of course, before they had Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon. Obviously, not work out for various reasons. We won't get into those. But before that, they tried to bring them both in to be that guy, and neither one of them could be that guy. We've seen Brandon Lloyd over the years, of course, the years with Randy Moss. I mean, Tom Brady wants that guy, and he can't chuck the ball as good anymore, but when he does, he's still extremely accurate, although it's more rare. So I like that a little bit if Tom Brady does return. However, I think your boy String Bean does remain in a green uniform. I've got him going to the Eagles or the Packers. I think that totally makes sense. My concern with Robbie Anderson, as much as I dig him as a player individually, he's got injury concerns, which I just don't like for receivers. Lower body shit. Alshon Jeffrey fucking kills me, dude. Stephon Diggs.
They're all in the what is it called? Yeah, Stephon Diggs too. They're all in the soft tissue injury gang. You know what I mean?
Which is very bad for receivers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And here's why. You get a guy that, let's take Emmanuel Sanders, tore his Achilles. Now, a regular human being like you and me tearing Achilles, we're down for like 3 years. All right? A professional athlete comes back.
But you're talking about Colonel Sanders, the heir to the KFC empire. You're talking about that guy's a monster. I'm still amazed that, like, even when we traded for him, I was like, I don't know why we're doing that. You know what I mean? But then he was I don't know, man. He's built different. It's crazy.
I agree, and he's been able to do very well. And if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't overthrow him, we win the Super Bowl. We don't need to talk about that either. But what I will say is Emmanuel Sanders comes back. He tears, a ligament, a tendon. Somebody tears an ACL, PCL. They can fix that, and once they recover, they're back. When you have a soft tissue injury, it leads to something else. If you tear a calf, it can lead to your ankles. It can lead to your knee. If you tear a quad or a hamstring, it can lead to your back. It could lead to your legs. So that's an issue for me. For Robbie Anderson, I think he would be best. This is not a popular opinion, but this is what I see best for Robbie Anderson and fantasy football in general. Mm-hmm. I know he's a stud. He was the number one in New York and never really got a full chance with, obviously, Adam Gase. But Le'Veon Bell not really helping out, taking pressure away, and Sam Darnold being out for a month and then having to regroup.
Yeah.
But what I think is best is if Robbie Anderson can land in a place like Green Bay or Philadelphia where he has a stud on the other side of the field.
He fits as a better. He's a better number two.
Dude, even a 1B. I mean, he doesn't need to be a number two, but if he was like Julio and Calvin Ridley or like Odell and Jarvis Landry, what they're supposed to be. If it was something like that, I think he'd be a monster. So some other names or some other places I could see Robbie Anderson falling would be the Saints, the Cardinals, the Lions.
I didn't think about the Saints. That's a good one.
The Colts, the Redskins, even.
Him and the Scottish lad Terry McLaurin.
Exactly.
That's not bad.
I think those are. It's better for Robbie Anderson if he were able to land in a position where he's not the number one, at least to start, because that quarterback will have a plethora of weapons, and the defense has to choose one of them. And if they have a tight end or they have a running game as well, you can't guard everybody. I think that's where Robbie Anderson would flourish. So I actually like the Eagles and or the Packers. I would love to see the Packers just because Aaron Rodgers would go fucking nuts. But
you think Okay, well, how about this? Do you think we, as Niners, do you think we make a play on any of these free agent receivers? The AJ Green or, String Bean, you know what I'm saying? Who else is going to be floating around this year?
Wide receiver free agents?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So the top ones are, Amari Cooper, obviously.
Oh yeah, Cooper. Forgot about him. Yeah.
Originally earlier in the season, I thought Amari Cooper might be a conversation for the 49ers. AJ Green is going to get retained. They just put the franchise tag on him in Cincinnati.
He's a loyalist too.
Yeah, and
he don't want to go anywhere.
Emmanuel Sanders too, but we'll see what happens with him. String Bean, of course, Rashad Perryman, Randall Cobb, Nelson Aguilar. I mean, Danny Amendola, Philip Dorsett, Devin Funchess. None of those guys are super exciting to me.
Yeah.
Of all the free agents, taking away Amari Cooper and AJ Green, I think that Robbie Anderson would be the best option. However, I mean, I like the 49ers receiving core if we can retain Emmanuel Sanders. And let's not forget, Jalen Hurd didn't even get to play.
Yeah.
We still have Dante Pettis, who also got hurt and he was in the doghouse and he got injured. The Niners have.
I was such a Dante Pettis truther, bro. I was picking him up everywhere, like the 7th, 8th round, and I was like, "This is a steal." And then he was that and then I was the guy. If I didn't, I might have talked him up so much that if I didn't have him, it would be because someone else bought into my bullshit, and then they had him, and then I'd pick him up off the waiver when they dropped him. You know what I mean? It's funny.
He'll be fine. I like him a lot. I watched him a lot in college, actually, up at Washington. Obviously, being up in the Northwest. I mean, the Ducks, top rivalry outside the Beavers is the Huskies. I watched him play a lot in special teams, and he was a fucking animal, dude. Great special teamer. And then, he just couldn't really hack it. He's a smaller guy. And Shanahan put him in the doghouse early, and obviously Deebo Samuel is just a beast, and he lost his position, but I think he could potentially come back. Anyway, without digressing too much, man, I think Robbie Anderson's the best option. I don't think the Niners make a play for him, though, unfortunately.
Because I was thinking right now, too, I was like, because Robbie Anderson does run 4-4. If we needed an outside threat, you know what I'm saying, over Goodwin, because I don't see us bringing Goodwin back. But then at the same time, too, I forgot Deebo got speed, too. You know what I mean? Deebo runs a 4-4, so you know what I mean. It's not really a necessity to get some kind of speed, but that's also just me being one of those guys that Robbie Anderson. You know what it is too? He's been a part of the fraternity a few times over the years. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Just one of those guys that him, the Doug Baldwins, those guys that you pick up off the waiver. You know what I mean? And later in the season, and they do something great for you. You know what I mean? They just stick with you. So how much do you buy into this Tom Brady Niners thing? Because I was kind of brushing it off all week, right? First of all, it was really annoying because it started popping up all week, and it was ramping up pretty significantly. Everyone I knew, they're hitting me all like, "Yo, dog, you hear about this Brady coming to us thing and blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "This is bullshit." I was like, "Nah, I'm not even entertaining it." Then I woke up Friday morning, and my guy, who's kind of like my Chicago guy, you know what I mean? He was like, "Bro, I heard on one of my podcasts, the Niners, they're tinkering with the idea of trading Jimmy to Chicago." And then I'm like, okay, now my eyes and my ears are open because Jim, when you want to trade someone that you have love for, and you're like, "Hey man, we're gonna send you to Chicago," and he'll be like, "Cool," because he's actually from there. That's his team. He grew up. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. Other than that, it'd be like a dickhead move. You know what I mean? But it's like, "Hey, bro, we're going to get Brady. You know what I'm saying? We're going to, send you." And I was like, wow, this might have some validity to it. You know what I mean? But well, what's your take on that? Because I honestly, for one, I want to keep young Himmy. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like Jimmy coming off the ACL is the reason why even though Shanahan's offense is predicated on using the run game to open up everything, it's a system that has several rollouts and several bootlegs. We didn't do any of that with Jimmy this year because he's coming off the ACL. And I think like a Matt Ryan in his second year of Shanahan's system, who had an MVP year, I think Jimmy Garoppolo's, full second time around in this system, we can really see something. You know what I mean? Then to bring in the old GOAT, who in his twilight years is saying the same thing. "Hey, I'm going to go to the team I grew up loving, going back home." You know what I mean? And kind of stick it to Jimmy again because I feel like that's just what he'd be doing. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, okay. So there's a lot to unpack here. Obviously, I'm going to try to start at the top and work my way through all of
good.
this. So it being potentially a big fantasy football shift, it's definitely something to cover. Obviously, you and I are homers with the Niners, so there's definitely a lot to unpack as well. And we're talking about Tom Brady, who is
the GOAT.
This generation's most productive quarterback, whether you think he's the best or not, right? I mean,
Yeah, because the GOAT. Okay, come on, we know who the greatest of all time is. It's Joe Montana.
Sure. but again, that's the West Coast greatest of all time, right?
True, very true.
Tom Brady is by definitely the East Coast Joe Montana.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always split when I talk to homies across country and shit like that, right? So again, I'm not shy about my 49er fandom or my Oregon Duck fandom when I talk on these podcasts, but I'm also I try to be really blunt with the fact that like I pride myself in not being a homer to the point that it influences my mind, giving other people content and giving other people value. So I'm going to take my 49er hat off and just give you what I think is actually happening. So do I believe in the hype? A little bit. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. I do think, here's how I think it would happen and what would make sense is the 49ers move on from Jimmy Garoppolo one way or another. They trade him away. I'm not a big Jimmy fan, period. I haven't been. I wasn't excited when they traded for him. I'm a big Nick Mullins fan, actually.
Oh, big dick, Nick?
Some other time. So we can talk about that another time, but I'm not into the Jimmy thing. I was actually kind of disappointed when there was free agents out there. I
wanted Cousins to be better. Oh, look at it. We said it at the same time. I think we just became best friends.
Well, it's interesting because I wanted Kirk Cousins too, only because he actually like played games.
Yeah.
But I don't think Kirk Cousins is that much better.
No, but that was my thought process at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. So Jimmy Garoppolo, whatever, he comes in. I mean, cutting him would clear $22.4 million in cap space. That's not going to happen for the Niners.
No.
Kyle Shanahan does love Kirk Cousins with his time at Washington. That's why I thought he would come over.
We could wait a year. You know what I mean? One more shot with Jimmy. Cousins is a free agent next year.
We could potentially, but again, that eliminates Tom Brady. So the Tom Brady conversation is the only way I can see it coming in where I would personally like the situation is if we get rid of Jimmy, we bring Tom Brady in. He is the hometown kid. He is the 49er, like Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, these guys grew up watching Joe Montana and Steve Young, just like you and I did. So I think it would make Tom Brady's life to win a Super Bowl.
That's true, huh?
In Joe Montana's uniform. I think that would be a huge deal. The comparison forever. It's the LeBron, Kobe, Michael Jordan conversation that'll never go away.
Right.
The Tom Brady, Joe Montana conversation will never go away because we're just never going to know.
They played
in different eras.
Even that story where he's saying he's like 8 or 9 years old, or I think it was like he was like 6 or 7 years old, and he was in the end zone watching the NFC Championship, and he's seen the catch. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like whether that's a fabricated story or not, I loved it because in our years that we were bad, I always claimed Brady and Rodgers because they grew up Niners, you know what I mean? And they wanted to come to us. So like in our years that were bad, I rooted for them, you know what I mean? I love them. And it's like, but then I get afraid just thinking about us getting Brady, just being the name alone. Because, Brady was the guy who used to make guys good. He didn't need a Antonio Brown or a Josh Gordon, you know what I mean? But then again, we seen him with nothing last year, and we actually got some shit. We got Kittle, we got Debo, we got a phenomenal run game. You know what I mean? Everything's play action, this and that. You know what I mean? Like I could see it working, and you got that defense that all those your Peyton Mannings and who else was in who else? What's that fool? John Elway's. In their twilight of the years, they wanted to get the top tier defense so they could try to get one more out, squeeze one more out while the juice is had. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And so here's, I guess, to wrap this up, my take on the Tom Brady thing is the only way I would like to see it happen is we get rid of Jimmy, we bring in Tom. He obviously is the quarterback, but he mentors Nick Mullins, who I think is legit, could be the future for the 49ers. It's just a whole other conversation.
I love that take.
For sake of time.
I love that.
But it's a classic. Like Nick Mullins has the tools. He's still super young. He broke all of Brett Favre's records in college. The kid's legit. He's done very well in the pros when he's got the opportunity.
Yeah.
But Beathard has been in his way, who I think is just a guy. That's not going to happen. So I think if Brady comes in and mentors Mullins sits behind him, just like Jimmy did for a handful of years. He learns from, quote-unquote, the best currently in the game, right? He learns all the games, the in and outs, and he watches Tom Brady's work ethic, his game prep, all this other shit that everybody totally raves about, and why people liked Jimmy. Jimmy didn't do shit when we got him. They only liked him because he was on a winner behind Tom Brady. That is Nick Mullins, and I think he'd be just fine. So we bring in Tom. The 49ers have exactly what Tom Brady, A, needs in his career right now, and B, has always strived with in New England. We have a plethora of running backs. Every one of them can catch. We have a progressive offense. We have a West Coast offense. We have a tight end who could be straight up fucking Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, for real. Huh?
We have good enough receivers, and we have arguably the best defense in the NFL. Like, we are just the Patriots 10 years ago. Yeah. So it makes perfect sense if they want to make that move, and I think with Tom Brady's leadership and the ability of having Tom Brady in the playoffs.
We necessarily might not ask Brady to throw it like 45 times a game neither. You know what I mean?
Oh, hell no. Yeah. No, he'd throw it 25, and he would complete 23 of them, and we would be just fine. That's all Jimmy did.
Yeah, you ain't lying. All right, okay. Before we wrap this thing up, you know what I'm saying? We are fantasy analysts. I like to throw up the air quotes every time I say that about me because, you know what I'm saying? I just love talking this shit. You know what I mean?
I got you.
Yeah, but you know, we are fantasy analysts, and you know, we are fantasy enthusiasts. We are managers first. So tell me what a Sky League looks like. Like what is Sky's League? Your preference? Like, what are we talking? 12 teams, super flex. What are we talking? Like 3 wide receiver sets, double flex. Like, what are we talking about? PPR. Lay it on me.
All right. So my ideal league, if I were to make the lineup right now. It's definitely going to be full PPR. I understand the whole half point. I'm just not into that.
Yeah, me
full
neither.
PPR. I've been playing it from the beginning. Full PPR. I'm going to do 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 receivers, a tight end, 2 flex, a defense, and a kicker. I am a little bit traditional in that I've been playing over a decade. I am one of those guys that says tight ends, defenses, and kickers are part of the NFL. Yeah. They matter in the NFL. They should be a part of your fantasy team. I know they're a pain in the ass, but that only means that you need to pay attention more and draft accordingly and run the waivers. So I am more of a traditional lineup guy if I said it. However, I am totally down to be in some different setup leagues where you're having kind of more points, more of a steroid league, if you will. Yeah. So my other option to that, a non-conventional kind of more of a, fantasy team scoring 250 points a week type league. I love the 2 QB system, whether it's mandatory or super flex. 2 running backs, 2 receivers, no tight end. Of course, you can still draft tight ends, but they're not mandatory. Yeah. 3 flex, one of them being a super flex, and then no defenses, no kickers. So I kind of like the playing as many guys as possible. I think it makes your draft matter a lot more. It also makes the waiver wire a hell of a lot harder to work with. Because not as many guys are available. So those top end
and that provokes more. It provokes more activity as far as trades and whatnot. Yep. Oh yeah.
Yep. I am, and that's kind of like my roster setting preference. My league setting preference is I'm a keeper guy. I do play in dynasty leagues, but I'm still getting kind of warm on Dynasty as a whole. I love keepers, and the difference, if people don't understand, the difference between a keeper league and a Dynasty league is a keeper league, you might keep 1 to, let's say, 3 to 5 players max. And there's all different ways you can do that. A Dynasty league is you keep your entire roster for the length of
the contract.
The league's the league's history. So if you draft, let's call it, Josh Jacobs, for example, last year, and he plays 8 years, you might have him on your team for 8 years, where in a keeper league, I might draft Josh Jacobs, keep him this year, but if he falls off and gets traded or gets hurt, then I chuck him, and I put him back into the pond. So that's the difference. I do like keeper leagues more than Dynasty right now. It's just kind of where I've been sitting as a long-time player. Dynasty's still kind of a new thing, so I'm getting used to it kind of a thing, but I like keeper leagues, and I like to keep about 2 to 3 players. I have all different strategies on that. I don't know if you want me to get into all those.
No, lay it on me. Lay it on me. I'm all about it.
Yeah, so my thing with again, I'll keep Dynasty to the side. in a keeper league, again, you're drafting. It's a redraft format, so you're drafting a redraft like you usually would, but you're drafting with the mindset of, let's say it's 3 players. All right, 3 players only. You get to keep from this year's draft in 2020 for the 2020 season. So you don't know, first you don't know who's going to be healthy, who's going to make moves, who's going to break out, who's going to fade, whatever. But what you're doing is you're banking on the opportunity that it does happen for next year. For example, I share this example every single time because it worked out incredibly for me, and it was a risk that I took, and it worked out. 2017, Alvin Kamara is a rookie. He's behind Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson in New Orleans. Okay? I picked Adrian Peterson in like the 8th round or something like that. Mark Ingram was way gone. I picked Adrian Peterson as the backup, and I thought in the 10th round I was like, well, shit, this kid out of Tennessee is pretty good. He was actually an Alabama running back, and there were just too many in front of him, so he left and he went to Tennessee. That showed me a lot about Alvin Kamara's ability. So then I said, all right, well, if Adrian Peterson gets hurt, which he's old and he definitely could, I'm going to take this kid who might have an opportunity.
Darius Guice.
With the Saints.
Oh, yeah, Alvin Kamara. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara with the Saints. So I pick him in the 10th round. First couple weeks, nothing happens. Adrian Peterson gets hurt. Mark Ingram ends up getting split. Alvin Kamara becomes Alvin Kamara. I keep him in 2018 as my 10th round pick, and he was going as a top 4 running back. Yeah. So that's just something that can happen in a keeper league.
I remember that game he blew up too. It was in London.
Yep, and I like those opportunities because it gives more chance, and it makes the end of the roster more fun, where you start throwing darts, but these darts could actually matter.
Yeah, because that per round that you're gonna have to give up.
Yep, and the guy that won our league of record, which is very competitive, it's the most competitive league I play in with all of our homies that have been playing for 12 years. The guy that won the league this year kept George Kittle in the 10th round because he drafted George Kittle last year in the 10th round. So that's just the kind of thing that can happen. One thing I recommend for how to figure out those keeper rules is what we do is we keep anybody we draft, the first year we keep them, we can keep them in the round that they were drafted. So again, that's the 10th round, 5th round, whatever. Yeah. After that, they don't go up a round. So if I kept Kamara in the 10th, I keep him next year. He doesn't go to the 9th. He automatically becomes a first-round pick no matter who he is. Oh. So what that does is now Alvin Kamara is a first-rounder, so that makes sense.
Yeah, George so it doesn't – yeah, okay. So it's not overkill on one team who came up in the late rounds. Like
no, but here's the thing. I can't – so if I keep Alvin Kamara as my first-round pick because I kept him as a second round, I obviously don't get a first-round pick. So now it depends on what is my draft position. If I have the 12th pick in the first round,
you're not mad at it.
I would love to, but if I have the 3rd pick, I might not pick Alvin Kamara as my keeper.
Depending on who's available too.
So I pick somebody else, and I can still pick Kamara. So that's something that I think keeps it interesting. Is that I know a lot of keeper leagues, they just climb the ladder every year, right? So if I get Kittle in the 10th, then he's the 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th, blah blah blah. I don't do that. It's just like, he's your 10th round pick, and then he's your first round pick, which also throws them back into the pool very often. You don't have guys keeping players for like 7 years or some crazy shit. I don't like that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely in a keeper leagues for sure, and I've been in a handful of them. So that is definitely my jam.
Well, you heard it first, straight from the Candlestick Kid representative himself, Sky. Man, it was great having you aboard. Hey, but check this out, real talk, Playmakers. Pay attention to those type of leagues that he described too, because all that vanilla shit, like don't walk up into Baskin Robbins and order vanilla. You know what I'm saying? Like it, you know what I'm saying? Put some spice on it. You know what I mean? And also with keeper leagues, I do agree with you with the keeper leagues over dynasty, because just as a personal preference, because, it's kind of hard to find people that's dedicated like that too. You know what I mean? Dynasty is a real dedication. Like, I for one I'm not even in a dynasty league. You know what I mean? That's why I can actually say that for my personal preference, that because I do have a keeper league, and that one's fun too. My keeper league is a little more shallow, only 10 team. We keep 4. You know what I mean? And like, it's just one of those things. Like, every year, it boils down to people's actual decision making versus them getting lucky, and because there's a lot to do with that too. Hey, we welcome those guys too. The guys that win and aren't as obsessed as us. You know what I mean? They make it look easy because they're they might have drafted and who's a good example?
Devontae Parker in the 16th round.
There you go. You know what I mean? Man, and that's weird about Parker too. Parker's one of those guys that scorned me this year. I actually lost to Parker in a Super Bowl to a team that was named the Candlestick Kid. Fun fact, right? Right, but Parker, he's another one of those ones too, where like the opposite of Robbie Anderson to me, where I had so much bad experiences with him, and I was just such a Parker truther that when he was floating around in week 8, 9, still in some league, he didn't become 100% or over 60% owned until like week 10, which was kind of crazy. You know what I mean? He's just floating around, and I just kept saying, I'm gonna let him stay out there for someone else to pick him up and fuck him, and then he fucks me in the end. Pause. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's how it goes, man. And Devontae Parker's an interesting situation. There's guys like that every single year. He finished as the wide receiver 11, and he hasn't done anything for the first couple of years. But we know that Ryan Fitzpatrick's willing to chuck it. And again, just like we said earlier in the podcast, man, if he gets a running back, and if Fitzpatrick remains the quarterback, and they're willing to chuck it, Devontae Parker's going to be just fine. But they got to get him help on the other side. If Preston Williams is going to be out, they got to get somebody else on that other side there.
Yeah. Preston Williams is a big boy coming off the ACL too.
Totally. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. A couple quick notes on the fantasy settings before we get off the topic. Just because I just want to finish up with you real quick. So those are my styles and my preferences. I'm also a fab guy over waivers. I just think it's more fair. It also makes it more fun. And a big reason that I do the keeper league over the dynasty is because I love the drafting of the season. I mean, we put in so much work in the off season. I want to draft, and I mock draft like too many times. I want it to count. And if you do a dynasty league,
you only have the rookie
rookies.
draft. Yeah.
So I don't dislike it because it's fun and that's a different strategy. But I want to keep like 3 of my dudes that I want that worked out from last year that I can kind of hang my hat on and be like, yo, I knew this was a good pick. It worked out. I'm going to keep him again. But then I want to draft the rest of my team all over again because that's a lot of fun. So I love that. And the other thing is, if you have a homie league, a work league, a family league, a hometown league with the people that are within driving distance, have a live draft. If you can handle a live draft, it is the best. We've been having a live draft in our league of record for 12 years. Actually, funny enough, last year was the first year and only year in 12 years that we didn't have one because, we all started in Eugene and now just, people are starting families and people, they live all over the country and it's been harder and harder. But we're going to try to bring it back this year because it's just so much fun. So try to have a live draft. They take like 3 or 4 hours. Who gives a shit? They're a lot of fun.
Bring get faded. Food. You know what I'm saying?
Bring whatever kind of,
indulgence
you like to bring. Totally. Send the kids over to the homie's house and have a good time because the live draft really is maybe my favorite part of the entire fantasy football season. So that is definitely highly recommended.
You ain't lying, Sky. Yeah. Man, I'm just so. It's funny because when I'm listening to you talk, there's so many things I want to ask you, and then when I get my opportunity, I just draw a blank because I just hang on the last thing you said. But as far as settings too, you know what I'm saying? With trades too, playmakers. Man, I suggest trades. Let them happen. They just happen. Fuck a veto system. Can't stand that shit. You know what I mean? Because one thing about fantasy and poker and like pro wrestling and all these things, they have the same. They have one thing in common, and that's the psyche, like the mind game aspect of it. You know what I mean? The manipulation, and you know what I mean. Yep. And it's like vetoes. That's just one of the easiest things to manipulate. And most of y'all probably play in Yahoo leagues where it only takes 4 people to make a veto go through. So that ain't nothing but calling the person that's making the trade and who they're playing. And like, hey, see what your opponent's doing this week? Oh, what? You know what I mean? And then you got one on your own. Then you call the person that on the other side who's making the other trade, and you call their opponent. You do the same thing. Boom. Then you got a veto. And trades never happen. And that's what. And I think trades are what make fantasy leagues the funnest to me. Just to go back to the point I was bringing this up. Because, I definitely love the draft. I love the live draft aspect of it. Fucking love it. I for one, I probably overindulge in the drafts. And, I love it because you know, it gives me the excuse to make these bold pickups. You know what I mean? Like where they're like, they think I'm crazy, but I've hit out the park on a number of times where it's like, and if I don't, I just be like, oh man, I was pretty fucked up that night.
Totally. I get it, man. And honestly, to the trade point, I mean, you know, for me personally, I am anti-veto trades. I think vetoing trades is not legit.
It's wussies.
Well,
now you know what people say when it comes to vetoes? They say, "Hey, man, it's part of it exists, so it's part of the rules." You know what I mean? And it's also a way of trolling people. But I think just for people to stay engaged, you know what I mean? Trades make leagues fun. You know what I mean? Trades.
Yeah.
Yes.
A veto is only legit, in my opinion, if one of the players. Okay, a vetoable trade, in my opinion, would be something like, let's take like, I don't know, Julio Jones and Preston Williams head to head. That seems ridiculous to me because, in my opinion, Preston Williams will never beat Julio Jones.
Yeah.
However, something like Julio Jones versus Devontae Parker last year, you could say the same thing, and then Devontae Parker has a year and only ends up a few spots behind him.
Yeah,
I think a big thing with trades is you never know the future. Okay, if I trade you Derrick Henry and I get back Raheem Mostert, and everybody laughs in my face because I took Mostert, and Derrick Henry tears his ACL next week, who wins?
Yeah,
you know,
true.
like you're just never gonna know. Now, a lot of times it doesn't work out and it's shady and it's just stupid. So I think as a commissioner of a league, that's your responsibility to pay attention. And if shit is just straight up dumb or somebody's hurt or somebody doesn't know what's going on, you need to step in. Otherwise, you got to let the chips fall, man, because things happen every year. Like Kenyon Drake was nobody until he got traded midseason out of nowhere to Arizona, and then he was a league winner. So shit happens every year, man. I'm not about veto trades at all, to be honest with you. Like, I don't play in any leagues where you can veto a trade. Now, that being said, I'm the commissioner of most leagues I play in, and sometimes people will hit me up. They'll ask if it's legit. We'll talk about the potential of vetoing the trade for whatever circumstance.
Yeah.
But it's not up to the league to call bias or to shut it down. That's going to be my call after we talk to the league and vote on it.
Hey, that's the great counter argument for someone that's completely 100% against veto based on because they can never get a trade off, which would be like someone like me. You know what I mean? Because I'm obviously in my leagues, I'm one of the most vocal. I am one of the, you know, I'm shooting deals out. You know what I mean? And you know when you keep throwing deals out there, you know what I'm saying? You know, especially when you know your league playmakers, you got to know your league mates. You know what I mean? You got to know the players that they love. You know what I mean? And if you got someone they love, you're already winning. You know what I mean? Like sometimes the conversations they have itself. You know what I mean? And then there's other trades where you really, you know, on recency bias, which is my favorite. That's definitely my favorite. You know what I mean? It's attack recency bias. You know what I mean? Like I ended up with no DeAndre Hopkins in all my redraft leagues, but I ended up with him. You know what I'm saying? In majority of them, because I pounded those trades till I had him, because he was so shitty the first 4 weeks. You know what I mean? But it's like, yo, I'm taking Nuke off your hands. You know what I mean? Like, I just love recency bias. That's another key to make trades, playmakers. You know, because I have been getting some DMs of people asking me, you know, how can I keep people engaged? And you know what I mean? Like, I was like, cool. I figured that'd be a cool topic to bring up. You know what I mean? Because I know you definitely have a band. You definitely have a band of enthusiasts. You know what I'm saying? And that's another thing too. You know, if you're in leagues and it's just a money thing, or you're in multiple leagues because you're just having fun, you know what I mean? Yeah, you might got your fish leagues where these guys aren't really as engaged, and you know it's for a little bit amount of money, and you always clean up, whatever. But in my opinion, you know what I'm saying? The playmaker way, the true playmaker way, is get you in the league with a bunch of cutthroat individuals that are all enthusiasts and all obsessed. And like this shit it will just never end. Even during the off season, it don't end. And those are the ones that usually end up keeper leagues too. You know what I mean?
Yep, I totally agree, man. I think that's it is a lot of fun when you know everybody in your league. I mean, I know a lot of people just join random leagues because they get excited about drafting. But you know, I'm in like I think I've narrowed it down to like 5 legit leagues
Nice.
And I'm just not going to do any more than that. It's too much to pay attention to actually give a shit and be competitive. A couple of years ago, man, I was in like 9 like actual leagues, and it was just dumb. I mean, doing waiver wires took me like 4 hours, a week. I mean, it was
You ain't lying. I topped out at 7 myself. I topped out at 7, and I'm exactly where you're at. I'm at the 5 league mark. Like, and there's probably like 6 individuals that we're all in these 5 leagues. You know what I mean? Where it's like, it's just like, it's like my other homies league, and then we're all been in these leagues for years. Where it's like enough where. Because one of my prerequisites is having to be able to shoot a text, or having to be able to have a conversation with somebody, or pull up and smoke one real quick because I need to get DeAndre Hopkins up off your hands. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? You got to go the extra effort sometimes for these trades. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for me, man. I mean, I've got my league of record. I've been in for 12 plus years. I've got the TCK Pod League, of course, that I run, and actually. We're going to do something pretty special with the TCK Pod this year. I think we're looking at 2 leagues because last year the demand filled up pretty quickly. So we're going to run 2 different leagues for the TCK Pod listener league there. And I've got a league with my brother. And then, I usually leave one spot open that, somebody will invite me in or whatever, and I'll join a new group. But, I got a dynasty league. So that's about 5, and that's really what I want to do. I've got a standard league that my brother's been in forever, so I help him out with that. I've got the PPR leagues with the TCK Pod and Listener League, and then I've got the Dynasty League. And that pretty much covers everything that I want to, be a part of, and that keeps me in the flow with all this stuff while I'm able to give content and have our team building on things. So it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of hard work, man, and I appreciate you, and I applaud you and the Playmakers for what you're able to do and bring, because, running a podcast, man, and a YouTube channel, and people do that, a website, and all the social media shit, like, it is not easy, dude. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort, especially if you don't have a team helping you out. I mean, it's a passion for all of us, obviously, and almost everybody in this space is not making money doing it, and we obviously don't do it for that. We do it for the passion and the love for it, and to help each other out and to make connections and have a good time. So, allow us to, it's called fantasy football for a reason, and for me that means taking myself out of my reality of my day job, my family life, all my trials and tribulations. And when I turn on this, or I turn on a podcast, or I dive into work, I just kind of enter a different realm of area that I can just enjoy what I like to do. This is my thing, you know what I'm saying? And, I applaud you for what you do, and I wish you all the best success for sure.
Man, and likewise, man, I thoroughly enjoy you guys' content. You know what I mean? Well, I'll tell you this much: when I ask these questions to you on the show, it's in true fantasy form. I'm asking for a friend. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm really asking for me, because you know what I mean. Like, I am a one-man band right now. I do have a partner, but as far as like social medias and building the websites and everything, we're all in the humble beginning stages right now. And you know what I mean? Like, I really, truly appreciate you coming out and fucking with me on this pod, because, like you said, you've been in it for 3 years. You know what I mean? You're obviously passionate enough to, to stick with it, because, and that's one thing too, is I had a cast of misfits, and it's just me and my original partner from the beginning, because dedication is another thing, because like you said, we're all in a time of life, we all got families and shit. And jobs, and like, I think for people like me and you, because I'm a recording artist, you're a musician, what I'm saying, we're on the same line, opposite ends, and we know what that takes to push a craft. You know what I mean? Like, people, like, trying to convince someone else, like, that who's on a regular 9-to-5 day-to-day lifestyle. You know what I mean? They sometimes it's hard for them to envision, something like this, like taking something from nothing and bringing it somewhere. You know what I mean? But for people like us, we pushed music, and we've, because like you said, it's a fantasy. You know what I mean? Like, the dream was to blow up off music, or even just get, and now it's just life in general in the day and age we live with social media and everything. And it's just content driven. And in this case, in our case, it's fantasy content. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, man. And for those musician fans out there, if anybody's into, we call it reggae fusion. It's reggae, hip hop. I play didgeridoo. There's a lot of different sounds.
No fucking way, that's so hard. You played a didgeridoo. Hold on, let me run this back. You played a didgeridoo in a reggae fusion band. That's fucking hard.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I do the spits. I do the rapping if you want. I don't consider myself a rapper at all, but I do rap in the band.
You gotta shoot me some links. We might need to collab on something else now too. We might need I might need a didgeridoo, some funky didgeridoo on the track for real.
Whatever you want, bro. I'm all down. I rap, I play didge, and I play the keys. But behind the scenes, which is like what I love about this shit, is the paperwork and the behind the scenes that nobody knows about. I actually enjoy that shit. So I've always been the band manager.
You love doing administrative work.
Yeah, I've always been the band manager and the booking agent until we wrapped up with an international booking agency. But before that, it was me, and I'm still the band manager. You know what I'm saying? So I like to schedule out the tours and route everything out and run a show and advance and everything else and make sure that we're on social media content and merch and everything else, man. I mean, it's really important that stuff gets done, and I like that. And that turned over to fantasy football pretty easily because what people don't like to do is the research. What they want to do is listen to a podcast, take somebody else's notes, and call them their own. I like to listen to everybody else's shit, put it on paper, and then say, okay, what do I agree with, what do I disagree with, and why? I think that's the biggest thing, man. People don't ask enough questions in this space, and I think that's what we were here to do. Yeah,
I mean, the business is subjective until we see the numbers actually get put up. You know what I mean? Which I love because during the course of a season, once you get into a groove and you're able to call things, you know what I'm saying, then it makes you look like a genius. But really, it's just it's truly any given Sunday. You know what I mean? Like, it's as much as you could find like a cornerback you're bullying for, like, because after 4 weeks you see he's getting bullied. Okay, I'm gonna stream this receiver against him or blah blah blah, and you can be like, yo, this is my sleeper of the week, and then you hit. But really, you're just picking on this one guy. You know what I mean? Like, there's all different ways of, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm obsessed with it. Like you said, we can talk about this shit in every facet of a way, and all day. But you know what I'm saying? But you know what? Before we wrap this thing up, go ahead and let my playmakers know where they can follow you, because because I'm telling you, they need to follow your guys' content. They need to hear, they especially coming from someone like me, because I am one of those people who, before I started doing my own podcast, I would listen to people's podcasts and argue with them. They couldn't hear me, but I'd argue. You know what I mean? And I was like, I gotta start my own joint. But yeah, so tell them where they can find y'all.
You got it, bro. After that, I've actually got a couple questions I want to throw back your way too. Yes. All right. So yeah, Bogard, I appreciate it again, man. This has been a really nice space. I've been hosting our podcast for 3 years. I've been, I played football for 15 years. I've been doing fantasy for 12 plus. I mean, I do a lot of shit on my own.
Hey, were you there during the Chip Kelly days?
Oh, dog.
Oh my God! See, we're gonna bring you on a whole nother podcast for real, because I'll get into I got so many questions. Like I said, I had so many. Okay, go ahead, continue.
All right, so it's a rare opportunity that I get to be a guest for somebody else, and I really appreciate it. I hope I've brought your listeners and the Playmakers content on the back end. So if you've gained any value from my insight or what we do with the TCK pod, the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast, you're interested. I know what's cool too, man, is a lot of people that I talk to are East Coast, and you're a rare fellow Candlestick Kid, if you will, being in the Bay. So that's nice. So I know a lot of your listeners are going to be Bay homies, and I appreciate y'all. So if you want to give some love, man, please give us a follow. We're all over the social media, so I'll run it down real quick. Instagram, fantasyfootball_TCK pod. That's at fantasyfootball_TCK pod. On Twitter, you can give us a follow at TCK_pod. Find us on any podcast at the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast. We're on YouTube, same title. Facebook page as well, the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast. And please, give us a subscribe. And we're not about stats. You'll notice that our channels don't have huge numbers as far as followers. And I could give a shit less.
Yeah, because their content is key. And Playmakers, their content, like, I'm telling you, like, that's how I was following y'all for a cool minute before I actually was like, okay, I'm going to reach out to these motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off again. I'm excited. No,
I appreciate it. But it's real, though. I found out in the music world for a long time, we were touring nationally, doing all these things. I was like, why don't we have this many followers? How come this band has more followers? It doesn't matter, man. I tell people all the time, like, I'd rather have 300 followers and have 250 of them actually give a shit
Yeah.
than have 10,000 followers that I paid for that are fucking fake.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, social media is what it is right now. It's not going to be like this forever. When it fades out, and these people who ride on fake expectations from listeners and have like bogus street cred, they're going to fade out immediately. The people who are actually doing this shit on the grind and doing it authentically will rise to the top. So I'm not worried about our numbers, but I do appreciate the support. Please give us a subscribe. Give us a comment on our YouTube channels. Give us a rate and review on the podcast, of course. And feel free to DM me anytime. Obviously, Bogard's got the knowledge too, but if you want a second opinion, feel free to reach out to me, and myself or somebody else on my team will reach out depending on what your content is about. If it's about statistics or analytical breakdown, somebody else on my team will probably reach out to you. If it's like redraft strategy versus dynasty, I'll probably answer that question. So we got a lot of different avenues. And again, you can find all of our content, a shit ton of articles that my team has worked very, very hard on, our rankings, redraft, dynasty, rookie rankings, all that stuff. YouTube channel, that's all on tckpod.com, tckpod.com. You can find all of our stuff. And I really appreciate you giving me the avenue to reach out to your listeners too, man. And before we go, I want to actually flip the script real quick.
Yeah.
Like I said, I do host my podcast. So I want to throw some things back at you real quick. This is strictly 49er related. I want to give you a quick, not give you a 49er history lesson like you don't know all this stuff, but I wanted to read down the list really quick of what you and I have been through over the last 20 years or so, 30 years, depending on
essentially our quest for six. The last 26 years of our quest for six, essentially.
There it is. Okay, so the TCK podcast, of course, is short for the Candlestick Kids podcast. All Niner fans know what that means. The Candlestick Kids comes from the Candlestick Park, formerly the 49er Stadium, of course. I call Santa Clara, where they play now, like not San Francisco. That's how I always refer to it, because it's not San Francisco. It's Niners old stadium. I went to many games as a kid, but most notably, I went to Jerry Rice's last game as a 49er there.
Where T.O. got 20 catches?
20 catches. I was just going to say, fun fact, T.O. got the 20 catches there. But a lot of great games, man. I was there for, like, the Eagles stand during the NFC playoffs. We had a lot of shit. My dad went to the catch game, and my grandma had season tickets as a kid. I went to a million Giants games and everything else, too, on the baseball side. But basically, here's what we've been through, man. 1994 Super Bowl was the first Super Bowl I remember. I was 7 years old. We beat the Chargers, 49-26, of course.
Yeah, I was 10 years old.
There you go. We're about the same age. Great. Yep. So 1983 to 1998, they won at least 10 games every single season, including 7 seasons with at least 13 wins, which is just unprecedented in over 15 years. 1984, 1988, 89, 94, of course, they won the Super Bowls there with Joe Montana and, of course, Steve Young with Bill Walsh and George Seifert. 2003 to 2010, not so good. Those were no more wins than 8 wins per season. That was the Alex Smith era, of course. Yep. Now, I don't have hate for Alex Smith because he had 7 coordinators in 8
I was about
seasons.
to say.
Very, very frustrating. I did want Aaron Rodgers over Alex Smith in that draft in 2005.
You think Aaron Rodgers would have been on his back as much as Alex Smith was, though?
I do not think Aaron Rodgers would have been
Aaron Rodgers was mobile.
But I do think it could have been different just because of the type of mindset that Aaron Rodgers has. I think it would have worked out.
We would have been on the quest for 8 at least. Goddammit.
I also don't think that if Alex Smith went to Green Bay, I don't think he would have been Aaron Rodgers by any means. I just think Aaron Rodgers was a better prospect. But the rest is it. And Alex Smith's time at Utah was very impressive. So
Andy Reid straight up was like, I'm going to bring Utah Alex Smith back. And I remember his first year with the Chiefs, it was like week 6, and he had like almost 400 yards rushing. And I think he finished that year. Yeah, he finished
He was in the MVP conversation, absolutely.
Yeah.
2014 to 2018 was after the Colin Kaepernick years. Of course, we had Cap from 11 to 13. We lost to the Super Bowl. To the Ravens in the blackout rigged game that we don't need to talk about. Yeah. 2014 to 2018, we went back to winning no more than 8 games again. So that was another dreadful season. Last year, of course, we lose the Super Bowl to the Chiefs, which we should have won up 2 scores with 9 minutes left. Whew. That's a quick 49er history.
Oh, man. Okay, which one hurts more?
lost Super
yeah,
Bowl?
like losing the Super Bowl the first time, being Niners, where this is what we do. This is what we do. We don't lose Super Bowls, and then we can never say that again. Or
Right.
having it in the bag for roughly 3.5 quarters. You know what I mean?
Man, that's a really interesting one. I would say the one that hurts more would be 2012 because I think we were just straight up better. We were a better team than the Ravens that year, and what Colin Kaepernick was doing before everything unfolded, which is a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But what he was doing and what we were able to do with that Harbaugh team was just fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
But Ray Lewis in his last season, that magic that they had, I can't hate him. Actually, my lady's favorite team is the Ravens, so I'm definitely not hating on the Ravens.
So, hey, you know what though?
That one hurts more because
I would always assure your lady.
Better.
I would tell her just rest easy as long as Greg Roman is in and Jackson's together, because I don't think Jackson's gonna do what he's doing with just any type of coach. Greg
No,
Roman,
he's not. Because
yeah.
no, I mean,
We've seen him
Greg
do this
Roman,
with Kaepernick. I've seen him do this with
Exactly.
Taylor. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just yeah.
So I would say that the Ravens one hurt more. However, this year was pretty rough only because we had the lead. But in my opinion, man, as much as I'm a Niner fan and I loved the whole run, like we were not supposed to be there.
Exactly.
I mean, and the Chiefs were basically the front runner to the Super Bowl from the beginning. If
Yeah,
you
that
weren't thinking
definitely
the
eases the
Patriots.
blow. And I love
Totally.
Patrick Mahomes so much that it's like, good
I
for the
can't hate
kid.
him. Can't hate him. I mean, I'm rooting for the Chiefs every game they don't play the 49ers. How
You
about
know,
that?
check this out, Sky. So we came up with a saying this year. The saying was grateful to be faithful. Because, of course we're faithful. You know what I'm saying? But just this was so unexpected. You know what I mean? I'm a season ticket holder. You know what I mean? I'm
Nice.
just, we're at every game. It's just everyone's going crazy. They're cheering 4-0, 4-0, or they're chilling 5-0. Wherever they're at in the year when we're still undefeated. Like I remember just walking out, and me and my boy, shout out to my boy A1. We call it the walk, where we're just doing the walk back out of the stadium, and we're kind of reserved because we didn't see none of this coming. And of course we wanted it, but and then when it starts to manifest, and then like. I swear that's the one thing that made me feel as grateful was like, man, I'm just so grateful to be faithful because and to give my kids these memories too because you know what I mean. For the most part, like my oldest is 12 years old, so for the most part, she don't remember us being good at all. You know what I mean? Like because she was too young to even pay attention to football or anything. You know what I mean? And now I got a son. You know what I mean? Not, and I'm hoping. You know what I'm saying? And in this era, he'll be able to see one. I still think with this defense, we got one. You know what I'm saying? With this core group, before we start having to pay people and all that, you know what I mean? Like,
Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say we're gonna have to make a move this year, though. I really believe that, and it really comes down to I think what Jimmy's able to do for us if he is the quarterback.
That's a big if too right now.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, man, you know what? I almost don't. Honestly, I don't really have anywhere to go. We can keep talking. You know what I mean? But it's like,
How about this?
Yeah.
How about this for sake of the podcast and letting your listeners down easy because after a while people do get kind of numb. I do want to wrap it up here, but I'm going to throw some questions at you. Not looking for analysis, not looking for a huge explanation. I just want to rapid fire a couple of 49er questions at you.
Okay, got you.
I want to get your quick opinion and just give me the player or give me a quick couple sentences, but not even a big explanation. I just want to see where your head's at.
Got you.
Starting quarterback, week 1 for the 49ers in 2020. Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, or other?
Jimmy G.
Jimmy G. Who's the best running back talent-wise for the 49ers?
Talent-wise. Damn, I'd say Mostert all around, throwing the special teams attributes in there as well. You know what I mean?
Who's the number one receiver for the 49ers in 2020? Is it Emmanuel Sanders, Deebo Samuel, or somebody else?
George Kittle.
Ooh, love that. What is the best move the 49ers could make in 2020?
Ooh. What's the best move we can make? What's the best move we can make? I'd say the best move we can make, right?
A position fill, maybe a draft, maybe a free agent or a trade. What's the hole that we need to fill to make the Niners get over the hump this year?
Damn, it's kind of tough because we're a system Like on offense, it's a system. Okay, safety. We need a solid free safety. You know what I mean? That's what I think. Because in our system, we play a lot of cover 3. You know what I'm saying? We play a lot of single high safety. You know what I mean? Where our free safeties in or around the line. You know what I mean? I think we I'd like trade for Jamal Adams. Boom.
Oh man.
Boom. Give me that.
That would be fire. And I was really excited when we drafted Taylor Mays from USC years ago.
Right.
And he just didn't work out, unfortunately. Yeah. But I think we need to recycle Uncle Sherm and get somebody else in here. I'm not a Sherman hater by any means, but he's not able to keep up the way that he used to, and he got fucking smoked a few times in the Super Bowl.
In the playoffs even.
That's just the reality, man. When you play guys like Tyreek Hill, man, you can't be fucking running out there with half a knee thinking that you're going to keep up with these guys. And honestly, he exposed himself and he exposed the 49ers. If he's back and they don't fix that, that's how they're going to get burned. Otherwise, our defense is nasty. But if they find a hole, people are going to exploit that. So I agree with you. We need to get a back-end secondary plug once or twice, which I think we will because, John Lynch is one of my favorite players of all time. So he'll be fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yo, man, I'm so super blessed to have your time tonight, man. Thank you so much for having me on, and it's really refreshing to talk to a West Coast homie, but also a fellow Bay Boy and a Candlestick Kid in your own right. So thanks again for giving me the platform, man, and I appreciate all the support from the Playmakers, and I hope we can collab again soon.
Yeah, man. Hey, you know what? It's gonna happen soon. I'm telling you. This. We're not done here just yet. That you hear me, Playmakers? This is the beginning. This is the beginning of a beautiful a conglomerate. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, we networking. You know what I'm saying? Right here on the GMM network. We wanna thank you for gracing the Real Fantasy Playmakers podcast. And man, I look forward to all your content. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely not egotistical by any means to post your shit. You know what I mean? Send me some graphics, all that, so I can post and help cross promote you guys correctly. And and everyone subscribe to all they shit. You know what I'm saying? Also hit that subscribe and leave a comment. You know what I'm saying? If you want to talk some shit, you know what I'm saying? I want all the smoke. You know what I'm saying? We are from the Bay Area. If anyone knows us Cali kids, for all your East Coast listeners, you know what I mean? We with the smoke. You know what I mean? The good smoke. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah, pun intended. Well, yeah, man. You know what? Like I said, follow us at the GMM Network. Follow me at Bogard Scott Free World. And then one more again. I know it's tedious, but one more again. I want to make sure my listeners know exactly where to find you guys.
Absolutely, yeah, man. So I'm Sky. I'm the head coach, if you will, for the TCK Pod, the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast. We're all over every social network. You can either find us at the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, on podcast networks as well. We have tckpod.com, which is our website with all the different articles, all of our redraft rankings and everything else. You can meet the rest of my team there. You can also find us on Instagram, where I'm most active, which is at fantasyfootball_TCK Pod, or on Twitter at TCK_pod. And really quick, since you're a music cat and you got some music heads, and we're from the Bay originally, my band is Soul Seed, SOLSEED, Soul like the sun, SOLSEED, at Soul Seed Music on Instagram and everywhere else. We're on iTunes and Spotify and all that other shit. You can find us. If you like reggae fusion, a little bit of hip hop, some didgeridoo, go and check us out, man. And let me know that you're on that because you heard this podcast, and maybe I'll fire you something off as a little gratuity.
Nice.
So I appreciate the love, man. Thank you so much.
Man, thank you so much, man. It's all love. That's Sky from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Podcast. Hey, man, thank you for coming aboard again, once again, my brother.
Respect, King. That was a lot of fun, man. Thank you very much. I'll shoot you over some links or so.
Shoot me some music links. Can you DM me your email or something that I can shoot off some better links. It'll be better than Instagram. No, off top. I got you. I'm gonna take care of all that right now. You know what I'm saying?
Cool. And then if you wouldn't mind, man, please send me the audio file when you get a chance. However you rip it down, send it over. MP3 or 4 would be ideal for us. And we'll re-upload it. And also, send me Send me some of your links too, man, so we can cross promote. I would definitely love to help you guys out as well, and I appreciate the opportunity, brother.
Man, I appreciate the opportunity as well, my brother. This ain't over. This is only the beginning.
Respect, man. I appreciate you, man. Thank you, and have a great rest of your night.
Yeah, you too, brother. Peace.
Bless.